Sebastiaan, I would like to ask you to start off the session by introducing Derk and Rick a bit and telling us a bit about what the session is about and how you're going to approach it.
Yeah, sure. I think the best way to start is profiling each other a little bit. We're going to discuss a few things around remote working, offices, the next era. How do we deal with it? Are we using specific technologies? How do we communicate with our colleagues? And how do we deal with remote PlayStations or anything that you needed to work on games? So I was just try to start off with maybe you guys could give a quick background of yourself and also a quick profile of the company you work for or at. Where you're based, how many colleagues, where in the world. I would love to hear that. So maybe Derk, for you to start off with.
Sure. So I'm Derk, co-founder of Paladin Studios. Currently, I'm the executive chairman, which basically means that I am not really operationally hands-on involved anymore. I dropped that, or I gave that to the CEO, Kai Grunwald, about a year ago. So he's running the day-to-day. But I am, of course, still involved as majority owner and on the strategic level. The studio is about 35 right now. We peaked at 60 last year. And that was because of a project that we did with Nintendo. For a game called Good Job. It's out on the Switch. And that's a physics-based puzzle, we call it a problem-solving game, if you will, set in an office, which launched just before the quarantines everywhere. So right at the point where everybody needed to be home and had to drop their office environment. So it was an interesting time. I'm very grateful for that, by the way, because if we would have launched it like 3 months later or something, then I'm not sure if we would have been able to launch it at all. So that's an interesting, a bit of luck that we were done before we had to go work remotely. Can I say we've been around for 15 years, doing all kinds of games, and right now working on unannounced projects mostly, and maintaining My Tamagotchi Forever on mobile, which is basically the modern mobile version of the 90s little virtual pets Tamagotchis. And we're doing that game with Bandai Namco.
Oh. Rick?
Yeah, so I work at Pearl Abyss, a South Korean developer / publisher that recently celebrated its 10th anniversary. We have grown quite big in a relatively short time due to the success of our flagship title, Black Desert Online, which is a MMORPG that launched in the West now 4.5 years ago. Highly successful. We recently announced that the franchise has made over $1.7 billion. We are now also stock listed in South Korea, and we have offices in Los Angeles, South Korea, Japan, and Southeast Asia. And we are rapidly expanding with new products. And our latest product is a new battle royale-esque game called Shadow Arena, which we launched in early access on Steam not too long ago. And for them, I handle all the communications and public relations in the Western market. So I cover currently North America and Europe.
And the amount of team members you have around the world?
I do
lost
not
count.
know the exact. I lost count. I do not know the exact number, but I think we announced in 2019. I think it was April or something, that we had little over 700 people. So I would say between 700, 750 esque. That's probably roughly our headcount right now.
And the offices you have around the world, are they all technical offices, or are they more support offices and or marketing, PRs?
So all our development is being done from our HQ in South Korea, because we have started as a developer first and then headed into publishing. So all the other offices are currently publishing offices. So they are supporting in both, because we are games as a service title, and they are supporting the developers in communicating to the players, communicating to other stakeholders like press and influencers, but also live servicing the game. So making sure that the updates are being applied, gather feedback from the community and deliver that back to our HQ. I think that's our prime directive currently. So we just need to make sure that that our game is being published and serviced properly in the markets that we service.
Then when was the last time you both went to the office? Like, how long ago? Like that's of course I know you're both some of you are far away from office. I haven't seen my colleagues for a very long time. I don't even remember, but I've been in my home office for I don't know how long, but I think since December last year.
I don't know, maybe Derk can go first.
Should I go first? So the whole team, I haven't seen them since March. The government announced shutdown or lockdown. I don't know what the date was, but 3 days before that or something, we basically raised the red flag internally, and we said like, okay, this virus is out of control. We need to take action. And so we gathered everybody. I think it was on a Thursday, and we gathered everybody. We announced, hey guys, we're going to work from home. Next day we were all working from home, and I haven't seen them in real life since. Of course, Zoom is a different thing, but yeah. But I've met up with some people. So for the executive team, for example, met up with them in real life a couple of times, and is also what we allow the other teams to do. So they just they can meet up in small groups.
Now, Rick, for you, of course, it's you have a global team, so it's sort of normal-ish to not see your colleagues from day to day.
Yeah, and especially for me, it's a little bit different because I started at Pearl Abyss in January, and I'm actually their first European employee, because we don't have an office set up yet here. So that makes it kind of difficult for me to visit the other offices, especially the ones in Los Angeles and Korea. But yeah, so I actually haven't been to the office since I started.
Wow.
So that's a bit of a funny situation, but yeah, we have a long relationship already due to my previous employment at Cacao Games, which used to be the publisher of Black Desert in the West. So yeah, that's quite interesting. And I saw my CEO once, because the last event I did was Pocket Gamer Connects in London, which was in the end of January. And yeah, that's actually the only physical contact I had with a Pearl Abyss co-worker since I started working for them. So that's that's quite of a strange situation. But
that Pocket Gamer event is going down in history as maybe the last physical games event. It's the last one for me.
I think China Joy was kind of physical also, but I haven't attended that one. But it's.
No, the next one would have been the GDC for most of us, I think, and that one was cancelled already. So yes, February everything started, and then in March the GDC was right away cancelled. Yeah, but does that present If I may ask a question as well, Sebastiaan, I hope that's okay.
I know which angle
Does
you're going for, so that's perfect.
Good. Does that present any special obstacles for you your work at Pearl Abyss, Rick? Because it's very interesting that you haven't actually been to the office. The situation changed from day one. How do you because you want to build a team probably in Europe, I assume.
Yeah.
How you moving forward with all that within those restrictions?
Yeah, I think the luck I had was that I already knew key personnel at Pearl Abyss before I started, so there was already a certain level of trust there. So that's one part, and on the other end, I know the product really well. I know the way the game gets updated. I know the processes we have to go through. So for that point, not a lot has changed for me, and that helps me in great regard. If Pearl Abyss would have been a new and completely new employer for me, then it might have been a lot more difficult because because I have to cross like the time zone barrier. I have to cross a cultural barrier, and also get used to a new employer. And but luckily for me, because I already am working with them for so long, that transition was quite smooth, to be honest. And so I'm actually happy that I had that previous experience with them, which eased me into the job. Oh, there you go.
It's starting.
Thanks, Amy.
It's starting, but that's all right. No, makes sense. There's maybe a question to tie into that, and you mentioned London, DAC, but right away, how do you see the future of conferences? Do you think that there will be a blended way of presenting games via the internet in combination with offline conferences, or do you think seeing the offices of everyone in the games industry will be our permanent future? What do you think, Derk? But because for you have to manage a whole studio right here, right now. How do you see that?
So for conferences, it really depends on the virus. If there's a vaccine and it's a non-issue, then I think we'll go back to conferences as fast as possible. I think it depends on the conference. Some will hit the ground running and just pick up the pace. Others might not be as successful as before. But I think that's, the big sort of prerequisite for it is that we are completely safe. Until there is an actual vaccine and the virus is a non-issue, I think it is impossible to do something like GDC or E3 or any big event. Personally, I'm not. I think, okay. So regarding the virus, there's something very interesting happening in the Netherlands. We've seen a lot of new cases of it, but it seems like it's less serious, and the hospitals and healthcare workers, they know how to deal with it a lot better. So even though we probably haven't reached the peak of March, the relative rate of deaths and hospitalizations is a lot lower than it used to be. So that could mean that it becomes sort of a new normal where it's worse than the flu. So it's definitely not something that we can just go back to doing whatever we want, but we might end up with sort of having a sort of adjusted society where people we're not locked in quarantine. We can travel relatively safely. Things are sort of back to normal. I think what we've seen over the summer in the Netherlands, that's probably a good way to look at it. In that case, as long as there's no vaccine, I don't think that you can gather 100,000 people in one event like Gamescom. It's not going to happen. There is no government or organizer that will want to take that responsibility, because these are breeding grounds for super spread events. And then the next question is like, okay, what's the next best thing? Well, you could have smaller conferences. I think those might be a good way to look at it. Maybe there will be outdoor conferences where, you know, we've seen in the summer that outdoor events are usually okay. I think that might be a good option as well, which is a good idea in any case. You know, rather than big show floors, you know, why not just set up some outdoor events? And for the rest, I think we're stuck in this online world. So yeah. And I see the note about in-person conferences. They are scheduled, yeah, for the next couple of months. That's incredibly optimistic. I don't, you know, even if governments and, you know, governments allow it and the organizers feel okay with taking the responsibility for it, you know, I think there's going to be a lot of people that might go normally that will just cancel because it's, you know, it's just not a good experience walking around in these big halls, shaking hands, making deals happen. You know, we're all, I mean, we all know the conference flu, right? The nerve flu. We all have it. You know, there were GDCs. There were certain years where like a big portion of people got the flu, right, or something along those lines. Well, it's fine if it's the flu, but if it's something that's 10 times more deadly or that could have serious lasting effects, you're not going to want to take that risk.
Definitely not. Yeah.
50% of the people at GDC would have a hangover, and the other 50% would have the flu, of course.
It's a combination, most likely.
Yeah, but like looking at the current state, we're sort of at a clean sheet. So we could see that conferences and all these things are difficult for us to deal with, as we don't have a person in real life talking to. Like all of that is gone. Suddenly, all your travels are gone. But having a clean slate like this, and when things would come back to normal, would you think we'll have a better place, like you say, outdoor event, but also having all the things that we're doing now, online events, like the smaller companies have a bigger chance now fighting against the bigger ones because they already own the GDC. They are all over the place, where Facebook, Microsoft, and now the smaller ones have something to say and can also bring something to the table. So I think there's also a lot of positivity.
I'm not sure if I agree with you there, Sebastian, because I think if I would be starting a game company right now, it will be nearly impossible for me to get a deal signed with a publisher because they don't know us. They don't have a track record. We don't have a track record yet. True. And then it's going to be incredibly difficult to make those connections, right? A lot of these deals, at least publisher-developer deals, are based on trust. And they are very risky deals. A lot of money is involved. So it really helps to just be able to look each other in the eye. I think
but the benefit from online is that indeed trust, but you could also say transparency. So once you start working on a new way, you are transparent about what you've built and how you build it online, open source, on what you're doing as a team, or you grow to, which team members you have, and then build a track record online. That is already things I see online happening at the moment. Sort of the Facebooks of online, of teams, of indie teams, and then investors are already tracking those guys in a different way. And then
if you look at the funnel, like I think online is great for lead generation, and then the more you get into like closing a deal, then you probably want to meet up at some point. And that's my hope for the future, right? That we can still have international travel, you know, that people like you, Rick, that you can go to South Korea, or people like me, where I need to figure out a publishing deal, that I can go to America or wherever it is and just meet up with these publishers, and vice versa, that the publishers can do their due diligence at our office, or you know, I don't know how that works remotely. We'll see. But you know, these are I think there's a good combination, right? We don't need to have back-to-back 30-minute meetings at these trade shows anymore. That's for sure. I think that's a bit outdated.
Yeah. I want to ask
Sebastian, sorry, just a quick one. The comments and the people that are watching, I have actually outed their opinion as well. For example, Johannes, who led the Microsoft session this morning, he agrees with Derk. On the other hand, Sebastiaan certainly has a point as well, but I think it will be a difficult one. We actually got Jill online, who started his game company right when COVID hit. So he says that's a lot of fun. So Jill, if you have any specific questions, those guys here can help with that. Definitely give you some good pointers. But yeah, sorry, Sebastiaan, didn't want to interrupt you. I just thought that was interesting.
Well, of course, the entire industry is talking about gaming is great because it's booming. What I would love to hear from your perspective is something we notice is that yes, games that came out before COVID, they're doing great, but production of games and teams working on games during COVID has created a lot of problems. How did you guys deal with that? Like, or you don't have any problems? Like, working remote from the next day was all fine, and let's go and let's publish those games. But how much of that was a technical hurdle, and how much delays did this create from your perspective? How did you deal with it? Let's start off.
Rick, shall I take it?
Yeah.
So for us, we just finished our game for Nintendo, so we were really lucky in that regard. Yes. We're seeing probably a 10 to 20% productivity drop if you look at it in terms of like productivity. I don't know if that's something that will be improved over time or whether it's something that we just need to deal with. The biggest issue is twofold. So first of all, the deal flow. So like I said, business to business meetings are not happening anymore, which makes it really hard to close deals. We're seeing that picking up again, but the first 3 months or so after the quarantine hit, I think a lot of publishers and investors, I think as well, they were still talking, and they were, it was easy to get calls, but to get a signature for a deal, I think everybody was sort of putting the brakes on for a little bit. Right now, that's a little different because games are doing well. We see the dust settle. We are settling into the new normal, whatever that means. And publishers, they're thinking of their portfolio a couple of years down the line, so they want to sign new deals. So that's the first problem. I think for us as a sort of established company, we have a reputation, we have a big network. So I think we're dealing with that online for now, and that seems to be okay for next couple of months at least. Then the internal issue is basically that, on the one hand, things are going okay, but we really miss that social cohesiveness, the community feeling of being in the same space, making games, letting those creative juices flow, right? And I think, the one thing that we heard is like happy little accidents, right? When somebody stumbles upon something, they are excited about it in the moment. You hear that. You hear somebody laugh, or there's this, wow, look at this. That vibe, that's completely gone. We haven't found a way to replicate that. So that's the thing we're struggling with mostly.
It's basically becoming a big struggle on your side.
Yeah, and we're leaning now on this social cohesiveness that we've built over the last 15 years, right? So we have a strong identity, strong culture, but that's I can see that it's not something that will automatically sort itself out. We really need to push hard for it. So for example, we're driving an effort now to reestablish our core values and be really specific about how we want to behave to adhere to these values. So you need to make things a little bit more explicit, I think, which sort of takes the spontaneity away. It's a good and a bad thing, I guess.
No, I'm curious, Rick, because working for an Asian company. Asians are normally very structured and very productive. Funny thing is, just in the chat as well, Johannes from Microsoft this morning said actually he felt a raise in productivity. Dak, for you, question for later on would be how you measure the 20% productivity drop actually. But first of all, Rick, let me ask you, how do the Asians approach this as a very productivity driven part of the industry?
Yeah, I think on the development side, I'm not 100% sure because I'm not part of the development team, but I do know that the studio has remained somewhat open during the whole ordeal, where they let people into the office with very strict hygiene measures, where another part of the team works from home. So they have like a relation system in place.
Yeah.
On the servicing side, so that's on, let's say, publishing and servicing side, I think we are helped with very well thought through processes. So because we are a games as a service title, that was already set like even before COVID hit. We have to do certain updates. Those updates always happen on the same day. Everybody knows which task list to complete. Also in terms of roles and responsibilities between the team members. The responsibilities are very clear. And still, due to we're a good team, due to good teamwork, we also have the flexibility that we can take stuff from each other. So I think that's very helpful. So I think on our end, the productivity has not really changed. I cannot dare to say if it has improved or not. I can only say that for myself. For me, it has improved somewhat because when I'm working alone and I'm not talking to other employees, I can do a lot more. But at the same time, and I think that's also what Derek meant when he was discussing, that studio vibe. At the same time, you also kind of miss the conversations with your colleagues when you're addressing a certain problem, and you might want to have some quick feedback on a certain topic. And especially when you want to iterate fast, which is something we do, that's just a shame that you cannot have that iteration thought. And for me, that's especially difficult because I'm the only one in Europe. And although I do my best to make sure I cover both time zones a little bit so that there is an overlap, I think on my end, that's the biggest challenge. But yeah, all in all, it's a good team, and we know what we need to do, we know what we can do, and I also think that the company is putting a lot of trust in us, which makes the team very motivated and willing to give that extra power to get stuff done. And I think that's very important, especially for a company like us, who are dependent on quick iteration of the product.
That sounds very logical. Interesting question to follow that up for both of you as well, of course. Again, you mentioned, Rick, just that you split your time as good as possible between the time zones. You have to work from home. There is not a lot of people to spar with. The question of mental health arose, trying to manage that. Do you see a strain personally on your substance regarding the new way of working, juggling home, getting more time in with people from abroad, getting more contact moments in?
So I think more. So on personal level, I think especially at the start, I struggled a lot because when we were in deep lockdown, or what they call in Holland the smart lockdown, or intelligent lockdown, even was mentioned.
Yeah. Yes.
I was not only, because that was also kind of like my third month at the company, so you take that extra effort to make sure that everything is going the way that they want it to be. But at the same time, I was also helping my oldest daughter at school, because she's doing the highest level of education here. You're being a cook, you're being a dad, you're being a teacher, you're working for big company with big responsibilities. And then you miss the social, let's say the coffee machine chatter also, because it's just you. I mean, of course, I'm with my family, and I'm in a way very thankful for the time, for the quality time that COVID has given us. But at the same time, you're also kind of lonely, because you do not have any interaction, or at least not professional interaction, outside of your sphere. And of course you've got Slack, and you've got all these tools. We have video conferencing now, and that makes everything more bearable and easy, but it's still not the same as physical contact, I feel. And there is less of an interaction that is consistently flowing, I feel. And I struggle with that. I think that, especially when we went into deep lockdown, but as time passes by, I learned to cope with it. And I think for me now it's fine. But yeah, it's...
So are things you basically personally did. Well, what I find very interesting is, of course, Derk also mentioned it. What do the companies do to help their team members? Like here at Gameye, we spent a lot of time on making sure that everyone has those coffee chats. We have the Discord coffee chats. Our CTO forced us basically to all go into video chats on Discord. If you would ask your team, do you want to go into full-time video chats with your team members? Everyone would say no. You're invading our personal life. But this has been one of the best decisions ever. We're all together in video chats all day long, and we have our coffee chats. We do things like we're starting something called a book club. Everyone gets access to ability to send each other packages. We have a Friday. We have great events. People who create quizzes. There's a lot of stuff that we're doing at Gameye, like maybe even too much compared to what we hear at other companies. And I personally always say I'd rather see my colleagues go away from their desk than they're at their desk. So make sure that they're outside. And then we even have budgets, daily budgets, for people to go outside to get a coffee, or outside to the fitness center, or outside to have your own remote desk. Please go away from your desk, because you need to be out there and communicating with other people. I know, Derk, this is also one of your passions. Like, what have you put in place so far? What are the tips and learnings you have from dealing with that for your colleagues, and making sure that they're healthy and good and interacting?
And I think and this is one of the most important questions, I think, for all of us to think about. And so there's a big difference between a company like Gameye that said out of their own initiative, like, okay, we're going fully remote, right? Because it just, then you want to make that work for everybody. You create the budgets for it, you think about it, there's a plan, there's a strategy behind it, right? In our case, and I think in many other cases, we're thrown into the deep, and now we need to learn to swim. And I think that's a big difference, and we're probably struggling is maybe not the right word, but we're finding this out. So what we've done. So we have a task force, self-appointed task force. That's the task force work from home improvement. And that's basically a group of people that care a lot about this stuff, and they organize a lot of different things. So when we had the 15-year anniversary, for example, the task force made sure that we had this, everybody got this little poster thing that sort of as part of the celebration, and a care package and stuff like that. A care package, new people that join the company in these times, they get a care package sent to them at home, which is something that's a big success as well. We do pub quizzes. We actually hired a professional pub quiz master who actually did TV shows as well. So that was pretty cool. I wasn't able to join that one, but apparently it was a good success. We did a online
awesome.
escape room. Yeah.
Right.
So there's a lot of online things you can do, right? And the task force is also organizing games to play and doing small things. So online board games and stuff like that. This is just the fun stuff, right? This is not something that's going to prevent mental illness or sitting inside. So I love the budget for going out. I think that's good. And that's the thing that's also been, I think, striking all of us very hard. It's like you can't go out, right? It's not just that you're working remotely. It's also that there is no way, or there used to be no way, to meet up with colleagues or with friends or with whatever. So I think that requires special attention. So I'm very lucky. I have a very good HR manager. She likes to call it people ops. And she's officially head of culture and people and culture. And I think what she's been doing, she's making the rounds regularly. She's making sure that people have one-on-ones, that we all do these one-on-one conversations every now and then that are not just about the work, but also about, hey, how are you feeling, and is everything going okay? We make sure, and we're not quite there yet, but we do our best to make sure that everybody has a good working place. I think that's one of those key things. So we actually we're preparing for the worst, in the sense that we expect that we'll be in this situation for a couple more months at least. So we basically offered everybody to pick up a desk from the office that they can then put at home. So a standing desk, good chairs, good hardware, all of that stuff. These are the basics, right? This is the basic fundamentals. Some people, they struggle a lot because, if you're young, you don't have a lot of, money or whatever, you're just getting started, or students, they work in a student apartment, they share the house with not roommates, but housemates. They struggle because, their bed is next to their computer. So that's a problem. And we're figuring that out. We're considering, well, first of all, they can come to the office if they want, right? So that if you need some working space, you just need to get out of your little cage. Yeah, then that's totally fine. And if we in the future decide to go remote first, yeah, maybe there's people that we just hired somebody from India. We're not going to get them over to the Netherlands, so they will be working remotely for the time being, at the very least, maybe permanently. So we need to figure out how to facilitate those things as well for people who are not in the Netherlands. And that may be, co-working locations. Kim, my HR manager, she basically got a subscription to something called Spaces, which is like WeWork, that gives her own little office. She lives in a tiny house, with a 3-year-old kid. That's not going to work. She needs complete silence, and she needs to be able to have private conversations. She needs to be able to meet up with people. So she really needed her own space, and we made sure she got it. She's very happy with that, and that might be a solution for the future as well if we go remote first.
Yeah,
a lot of stuff has been done internally to make sure that everyone's happy, is able to work on a desk. That's quite a bit. A lot of work,
and it's still not enough, to be honest, right?
I get
yeah.
it.
ideally, it would be so much better if we were able to make a hard decision, like, oh, we're going fully remote, or no, we're going to go back to the office.
Yeah, that's a
because then people, because a lot of people, they are now in the city. It's expensive, relatively expensive. If you know you're going to work remote, then you can buy or rent a house in maybe a low cost of living area. You can set things up so that you have a good office space. Like you, Sebastian, you got it made.
you know where I live. I don't understand, like, with this new era, why would you live in a big city? And you see the panic selling in San Francisco. People actually putting their houses online and say, why would I have a house in San Francisco if everyone's gonna leave? Like, why would everyone's working from home? So I'm based in Italy, and I don't pay a lot for living. I have a nice office,
nice weather,
good internet. Yeah, nice weather. Why would I go outside in the rain?
Food.
Yeah, good food. It's perfect, and I wish that to every colleague I have, because it will help you mentally, healthily. I do sports. I have a good environment. But I would love to see my colleagues, but we do a lot of things, and especially our CTO is involved with it a lot. On Discord channels, the events and the book clubs, and sending each other things. That's a good vibe when you come on our Discord. Every morning we're all there. Good morning. So it's very nice to see that evolve. But why work in a big city? Indeed, what you say there. Like, why have an office? It should be just a club.
There's literally, I mean, apart from maybe nice, I don't know, yoga studio, or if you're into clubs or something, then it might be good. But if you're raising a family. I mean, I would. We're considering it as well to move out of the city.
Makes sense. All right, guys, we're 5 minutes or 10 minutes already. We have been talking 10 minutes longer than we anticipated.
We're just getting started.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I wanted to say. Yeah, we could talk another hour about this. Maybe it's a good idea to take a future industry insight just about that, because I think it's very interesting, and looking at the comments, everybody's very involved and has an opinion on this, and you guys as well, of course, and you have a lot of actual experience to give advice to people, so that's nice. But I want to thank you guys for coming on, both of you. Very interesting stuff, very good insights, more personal insights, which is fine, which I anticipated this session would be, but next to the technical ones, I think that's a nice change up of scenery for today. So I'm very happy with this one. And then in 5 minutes, we're going to start the next session. But thanks a lot, both of you guys.
Many thanks.
You're most welcome, Jonathan. Thank you for having me.
Cool.